Hi. So, in these days, we're hearing so much about freedom. In light of the presidential elections, many have celebrated their freedom, others have lamented losing their freedom. We heard poems and speeches about it. Freedom is what everyone is seeking. But the problem is, not everyone sees eye to eye when it comes to what freedom is. I saw my best friend earlier this week, and she told me about her Uber ride from that morning. My friend is half Iranian, and her name is Persian. And her Iranian driver immediately recognized her name. And as the Bible says, where 2 or 3 Middle Easterns gather, they must talk politics. So, of course, they started talking politics. And the man went on to tell her about his wish that the U.S. government had trampled his government. And about his discontentment with the latest political changes in the country. Now, of course, my friend disagrees with him, but she can see his point. Many people who have experienced oppressive governments think that oppressing the oppressor is the only way to freedom. And I personally know many Arab immigrants here in the U.S. who were in favor of the previous administration and the policy of being enemies to the Arab world. So, as my friend and I were discussing this complicated world politics, the question of freedom came up. Should a government interfere in the business of another government, or is that considered oppression of freedom? Well, what if that other government that's being attacked is corrupt? Is that still oppressive? And the conversation flowed from, can the U.S. possibly change the political situations in the Middle Eastern countries, to the necessity of allowing indigenous people to decide for themselves who they want to rule over them, and to the importance of empowering people through knowledge. And then my friend raised the question, but what do we do with too much knowledge? And what do we do with too much freedom? Now, in her experience growing up in the U.S., that's not always a positive thing to have a lot of freedom. With my background, the concept kind of threw me off at first. I was wondering, is there anything like excessive freedom? So Paul answers this question in 1 Corinthians in chapter 8, where he speaks about food sacrificed to idols and how the freedom of believers can actually limit the freedom of others. Pastor West did reflect on the same text on Tuesday, and he looked at it from the perspective of relationship building. He asked us, he challenged us to think that, do we want to be right, or do we want to be in a relationship? I would like to look at it from a different perspective today. My topic will be dangerous freedom. So, in one of history's, in my opinion, most brilliant discourses, Paul carefully navigates a conflict in the community without taking sides, as Pastor Wes had explained to us earlier what the situation was. And Paul concludes his thoughts by saying, be careful that the exercise of your rights does not become a stumbling block to the weak. Here Paul talks about this very concept of too much freedom, and how it may come at a certain expense. Now, we know that humans are empowered by knowledge. That's a fact. And we live in the era of instant information transfer. Knowledge acquisition is as easy as a click of a button. And there seems to be a lot of freedom in that. But knowledge alone does not set you free. Paul argues, because knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. I loved one commentator's distinction between faith and witness. Dangerous freedom is one that, even though does not seem to be harming one's faith, but may hurt their witness. And Paul's argument is that both are important, is that faith needs and cannot be complete without the witness. So knowledge is knowing that food does not bring us near to God, and therefore we're not worse if we do not eat and no better if we do. Faith is believing that an idol is nothing at all in the world and that there is no God but one. But witness is being cautious that if what I eat causes my sibling to fall into sin, then I will never eat meat again, so that I will not cause them to fall. Too much freedom can be dangerous freedom. The hardest challenge of freedom is being subject to one another. And for us Christians, especially those who believe in church and in community, freedom is responsible. It only occurs within the framework of a community, and it assumes compassion and accountability. So if the church is to preach freedom today, it must do so with love and faithfulness, ensuring the consistency between its faith and its witness, between what it says and what it does. It must ensure that those with knowledge and those with weak conscience are both being nurtured, and that an individual's freedom is limited by love and community building bounds. Too much freedom is dangerous freedom. That's the thought I would like to leave you with. And in my question to you, my challenge that I would like you to take with you throughout this week is, do you want to be right, or do you want to be right with God?